Hello everybody and welcome back to OMB Reviews. I am the critic who is a cynic. Hope you're doing well, and today we'll be doing a box office preview for this upcoming weekend, which is expected to see Barbenheimer once again dominate the box office space, with the only new film set to be released being the Haunted Mansion remake that everyone, of course, was clamoring for. Apparently, some of the early reactions that I'm getting from people that I trust as far as the reviews are concerned is that the film is really not too offensive and that it is kind of a good homage to the actual ride itself. Doesn't mean that I have any interest in going to see the movie, but that deserves to be said. Before going any further, though, please make sure you smash that like button. Not the 5 minute honesty, smash the rumble button as well. Also, make sure that you are subscribed to the channel with that bell notification on. That way, you know every time the video or live stream goes live on the channel. So we got Nance, good old Nance over at Deadline, using her famous puns. Barbie energizes past $500 million worldwide box office. There's just no bones about it. Barbie is doing incredibly well. Apparently, third-wave radical feminism is back on the menu, boys, as this film is easily setting pace to cross $1 billion. Keep in mind, this film has not even been out, or rather has just been out for a day over a full week, and it's already past 500 million worldwide, which means if these holds are going to be true and based on everything that we have seen this week at the domestic box office, especially if all that remains true and if all that remains consistent, we are going to see very strong holds for this movie. This film could see upwards of getting past $700+ million by the end of this weekend, which makes $1 billion pretty much all but guaranteed. A lot of people, I think, are still holding out some hope that there's going to be some catastrophic drop-off because of the third-wave radical feminism in the movie, and don't get me wrong, it's in there, but what this is showing is that apparently the women who are going to see this film in droves are either oblivious to it or just support it, I guess. I mean, really, those are the only explanations that exist, is that they're either not seeing it, it's either going over their head, or they are actually buying into it. In either case, let's just say, I've got concerns about the future of our country with that being the case, because it is palpable. I don't care what other YouTubers might be trying to say about how this film is deeper than what it actually is, and it's actually, great metaphoric languages, etc. No. You are giving Greta Gerwig way too much credit. Try watching some of her other movies, and I think you will absolutely understand what I mean. Especially check out Marriage Story, another film that she did with Noah Baumbach. But let's go ahead and dive into the numbers. Barbenheimer is the gift that keeps on giving. Oh, Nance is so excited. The energy is so high for Warner Brothers Barbie that it spiked by 3% at the international box office on Wednesday versus Tuesday and added 32.7 million. Keep this in mind. What that means is that the reports coming from the international box office went up. You know how typically we see drop-offs from day to day, and usually they can be very large, sometimes they can be very small. Not only have we seen very strong holds domestically, it's also happening internationally as well, with it even going up. Right, so between Tuesday and Wednesday, it actually went up 3% versus going down. So these are the kinds of numbers that we're seeing, and the reason why we're going to see very strong holds, and why also $700+ million in the box office by Sunday seem pretty likely at this point in time. That brings the global running cum on the Greta Gerwig pick to a fantastic 528.6. So again, these are just with the Thursday numbers. So before you actually go into, right? Actually, no, these are just with the Wednesday numbers. So these are not even including the Thursday numbers. So if you include the Thursday numbers, I think all of us could agree that you're looking maybe at $600 million going into the weekend. So the fact that this film is set to get almost $100 million here domestically, you know what? I said $700 million. You could even see upwards of $750 to $800 million by the end of this weekend. So again, whether it gets to those heights, I honestly don't know. But again, these are the kinds of numbers that this movie is putting up, not even a full 2 weeks into its release. And if this film does indeed get to that $700+ million, which right now it seems like a foregone conclusion, that would mean that in a worst case scenario, the film hits $1 billion. I mean, based on historical standards, of course. But if you're 2 weeks in and you're doing very well, day to day, box office holds are looking very strong. Again, historically, there's just not a lot of metrics to indicate movies falling off a cliff at that point. I know a lot of people, again, are still holding out those hopes that people wake up to this, but it's just not happening. And the fact, as I've mentioned before, the people that are in our space who are much more aware of the culture war issues, the fact that many people in that space are either, again, ignoring the stuff that's in there, or being oblivious to the things that are in there, or even supporting the things that are in there to a certain extent, I think that should tell a lot of people what the current mindset of the modern American woman actually is. Meanwhile, also continuing incredible holds is Universal's Oppenheimer, adding another 16 million from 78 markets. Again, less than a 1% dip. So we're also seeing incredibly strong holds from Oppenheimer as well. So could it be that the Barbenheimer effect is completely still in sync at this point? again, the crossover hasn't been significant, meaning that it's not insane levels of crossover, but it's enough to where clearly Barbie and Oppenheimer are helping each other out. More so Barbie helping Oppenheimer than the other way around, but again, Barbie doesn't really need a whole lot of help at this point in time. Just to also get a little bit of reference as to how well Barbie is doing, again, because there are still some people out there that just don't seem to be. I know River's very mad that some people are kind of still expecting there to be this cataclysmic drop, but here are the numbers right now in other comparable films. So comparing this to other Warner Brothers regions, specifically in Latin America, right now it's 84%. Barbie is 84% of the billion-dollar film Joker. It's 51% ahead of Batman v Superman. Harry Potter Deathly Hallows Part 2 is 56% ahead. Aquaman, remember another billion-dollar film, 133% ahead of that, and even 65% ahead of Justice League. In the UK, again, as it says, where it's made $40.2 million so far, it's currently the second biggest frame for Warner Brothers behind Deathly Hallows. Now, I will say this much, right? They don't ever adjust for inflation. They don't ever adjust for the ticket prices being different. So they're not as close as what would be indicated here. And there are going to be other films from the past that would probably be up there. But the fact that this movie is still in that ballpark is still, you could argue about in the maybe top 10, top 15 when you adjust for inflation. That is still showing how strong and how well this movie is doing in these markets. In Mexico, it grossed $2.3 million on Wednesday, just a 19% drop. For Brazil is at 25.2, adding another 2.1, only a 4% dip. So what you're seeing essentially is all of these markets, every single one of them are seeing very, very small drops. And this is especially true also if you look to the domestic box office. So this was just from the other day. So from Tuesday to Wednesday of this week domestically, it only dropped 11%. The day before, right, from Monday to Tuesday, there was no change. Right, 26 million it made on its first Tuesday, and that was after making another 26 million on its first Monday. And that was only a 40% drop from its Sunday. So what this is showing, again, you're having incredibly strong holds domestically, you're having incredibly strong holds internationally, and so therefore, if this is happening on the day-to-day, there's no reason for this not to happen as well over the weekend, and so therefore, that's why we're talking here about 700 plus million. Lord knows exactly where it's going to fall, but it's going to be well north of that based on the numbers that we're seeing right here. Again, this film going into the weekend before Thursday's numbers even come into play is at 528.6 million. Just to give that frame of reference. That's how huge this film actually is. Tony over at Deadline has a lot of the same things to say. Barbie boasts $23 million Wednesday as it heads for $300 million this weekend, and it's going to get well past that. Keep in mind that Box Office Pro was the only site that actually got the numbers correct as far as the projections going into its opening weekend, right? Even the studio, Warner Brothers, only thought they were going to make $75 million. They ended up making $150 million, which was around the amount that Box Office Pro said. Now, Box Office Pro is not very consistent, right? It basically was like, oh, you were throwing darts out there and you finally got one that stuck. So again, take it with a grain of salt, but they're projecting right now that the film will only have a 45% drop. Based on the numbers that we're seeing on the day-to-day, that seems very, very likely. It could drop around that, could have a better hold, could have a slightly worse hold. We're just not going to see, though, any catastrophic 65% drop. That's just not going to happen for this movie. And the same thing can also be said for Oppenheimer, which is expected to have an even stronger hold, making another $50 million. And again, also, this is what they had expected. So keep in mind, for Barbie and Oppenheimer, for Barbenheimer together, they're going to see second week numbers that are going to be what they thought they were going to make opening weekend. Right? The initial estimates for Oppenheimer opening weekend was $50 million. The initial estimates for Barbie, again, coming from the studio, was $75 million. So I think this shows you that both of these films are doing very, very well. And both of these films are going to be utterly destroying Haunted Mansion. Haunted Mansion is going to be the brand new Disney feature. And even though, as I said in the very beginning, I've been hearing some positive things about it, that it's not really that offensive, but it's only expected to make 28.8, which is probably better than what they would have thought going into the weekend. But it also shows you that, yeah, Disney is in a world of hurt at this point in time, right? Warner Brothers, $88 million second weekend. Universal's $50 million second weekend. There's just no comparing it. So all this does also is show how just bad a state Disney is right now and how Disney is just continuing to be a box office loser in every single way. And don't forget, Warner Brothers is really not in a great state either because every film that they've had so far this year, as far as their big releases, have been massive flops and failures. So Barbie is the only positive thing that they really have on their schedule at this point in time, and they're expected to lose even more money as we get closer to things like Blue Beetle, etc. Universal has had definitely a much more hit or miss schedule, but it's obviously happy to see these numbers too. But the fact still remains is that these two, again, are just dominating the market at this point in time. Sound of Freedom also holding very well, expected to have another 19% hold. Again, that's insane numbers there. Also, keep this in mind with Mission Impossible, because obviously this movie, is dead in the water for the most part. But a 31% hold, keep in mind also, Mission Impossible is set to be losing quite a number of theaters. In fact, I think I saw the number being around 1,000 theaters. So for it to be losing 1,000 theaters, and for them to also be projecting for a 31% hold, that's actually pretty good percentage-wise. Numbers-wise, it still has a lot to go, and obviously Sound of Freedom is beating it in that market. I honestly do think that Mission Impossible could still, ultimately, by the end of its run, end up with a higher domestic than Sound of Freedom, but again, at this point in time, who is to say, because these numbers are just really, really good. All the while, Indiana Jones is still set to be still a massive flop and a massive failure. But these are just very, very, very strong numbers, and there's just no other way around it. So again, Barbie, looking at getting north of $700 million worldwide by the end of this weekend, and exactly how much past $700 million is anyone's guess. Could we see the film get to $800 million? It's possible. Again, adding in those Thursday numbers, I think $600 million going into the Friday, Saturday, Sunday frame, I think is realistic. And so for this movie to be able to get worldwide, it's going to get already around $100 million domestic. For it to get another $100 million internationally, that seems like it would be a logical possibility. So that's why, again, I think somewhere maybe between 7 and 800 million is probably where it ends up. So insane box office numbers. This film well on its way to making $1 billion. Oppenheimer as well, probably well on its way to getting to 500 plus million internationally by the end of its run, which again is also very impressive for a 3-hour drama. That's also a typical, or at least more modern day, typical Nolan, a weird jumping around time, artistic auteur film, which I wasn't a big fan of. But what are y'all's thoughts about these numbers? Do you think that Barbie is going to get to $800 million this weekend? $750 million? It's really not going to be anything less than that. There's just nothing, again, based on the current trends and history, that there's just nothing else that can really happen at this point in time unless the film got pulled from all theaters, and that's clearly not going to happen. Also, what else thoughts about Oppenheimer? Do you think Oppenheimer is going to be able to push its way ever closer to, getting to $500 million probably by the end of its run based on a $100 million budget? I still don't believe that's the actual budget, but based on that being reported, hey, that is going to be very, very good return on investment for both Barbenheimer films. Then also, do you have any interest whatsoever in the brand new film coming out of Disney in the Haunted Mansion? Again, it's interesting here how, when it comes to the Haunted Mansion, we're not really hearing a whole lot of commentary about that from these people. Let's see if maybe Tony has at least a comment. Nope, no comments there in their big box office coverage numbers. So yeah, let's just say Disney is in a world of hurt still, but ultimately, gotta still admit, third wave radical feminism is back on the menu and it's doing incredibly well. And hey, that's still pretty disturbing to all, or at least it should be. But anyway, what else thoughts about this? Let me know in the comment section down below. If you like this video, smash the like button, loud the fun, obviously smash the rumble button. You're all amazing and beautiful people. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And as always, God bless. And now for a special shout out to all of my members at the Keeper of the Bifrost level and above, starting off first with my members over on Patreon: Father Luca Illick, Heimir Irie Hymason, Garrett Searles, Joe Horn, Jonathan Carney, Orange Chat Reviews, check out his YouTube channel by the same name, Laura, the Monomator General's Story, Rosetta Allen, check out her YouTube channel, Eagle Rider, and Miss Martin Muses, check out her YouTube channel by the same name as well. To my Subscribe Star peeps, Zion Voders, Matt317, check out his Twitch channel by the same name, Fast Reaction, The R, Mr. Roy, J-Rod, The Beer Guru, and ZK-Man, who you can check out over at xtheboundaries.co. And lastly, to my locals members, Miss Minnesota Hockey Fan, How About a Hockey Player, J.H. Schwalbach, and Robert Barnes, the amazing lawyer. So thank you all very much for being my supporters at the Keep of the Bifrost level and above. And if you want your name shouted out at the end of every live stream and video, go ahead and check out that top link in the video description below to find out ways to sign up to support support the channel and to be able to get access to things like the shoutouts, but also to giveaways. I have an exclusive giveaways channel on my Discord server where I give away 4Ks, Blu-rays, all kinds of stuff, and also access to an exclusive podcast that I do once or twice a month, depending on what I'm able to get accomplished, especially over the course of this crazy, crazy busy summer. You guys are all amazing and beautiful people. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And as always, God bless.